Hi, my name is Veronica Davis, and I'm one of the WEN Global Regional Directors for Women's Energy Network. And today we are doing the Path to Power series, which was created to highlight stories of WEN members and how they've navigated their career. Linette Casey is joining us today as a sales account manager at Siemens Energy with over 2 decades of experience in logistics, procurement, sales, and renewable energy. She's a founding member and past president of the Boston Chapter of WEN. I keep wanting to say Baton Rouge, but I'm not going to take that out because I think it's funny. And has been recognized nationally for her leadership and sustainability, including honors from Maine Maritime Academy, PowerGen International, and the Department of Energy. Linette brings both professional expertise and passion for advancing women in energy to our conversation today. Linette's educational background includes a BS in International Business and Logistics from Maine Maritime Academy. She was the first female graduate of the major, and MS in Management from Troy University, and a graduate certificate in Corporate Sustainability and Innovation from Harvard. Linette, I am like, this is the first time I found out that about your, education and the fact that you were the first female graduate of the major for BS in International Business and Logistics from Maine Maritime Academy is awesome. Can you tell us a little bit about that experience and being obviously what appears to be the only female in that class?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So I grew up with two older brothers. And so from birth, I was literally in a male-dominated environment. And so I did everything with the boys before I did things with the girls. So I was the little sister who tagged along with Boy Scouts before I even joined Girl Scouts, and did all those things with my brothers. So actually, through Girl Scouting, our Girl Scout troop went to Maine Maritime Academy for what they called Sail Away at MMA, where we got to sleep on the ship and meet the professors and learn about the maritime industry. And I was in fourth grade when we did that. And I knew the second I stepped on the bridge of the ship that that was the school I was going to go to. And literally for the rest of my educational K through 12 career, that was my goal, was to go to that school. When it came to actually applying for school, my parents were like, "Oh, try other ones." So I did apply to a few others, but I knew all along that I wanted to go there. They had a summer session when I was a junior in high school where you could go for a week and try it out again. So I went and did all those things. So when I started school there in the 90s, there were about 50 women on campus out of a population of about 750 students.
Wow.
And so, I was one of very few women on campus in comparison to the guys that were there. And I started my degree in ocean studies, and I really wanted to do aquaculture and fisheries populations. But I found out that really, with that degree, it really could only prepare me for like graduate school or working in a lab. And so, right after freshman year, I really thought about what I wanted to do with my career, and I actually switched majors and I switched into international business and logistics. Um, so I graduated in the first, as the first female graduate of that degree. But you're right, I was routinely in rooms where I was the only woman in the room. And yeah, so it really, I think, really set me up in our industry to be able to, have some of the skill sets that I needed in my career, which we could talk about if you want to talk about some of my thoughts on what I 25 years later, how I think that prepared me in hindsight.
Well, you did say like you had brothers and then you transitioned to like going to school and then you were obviously in a class with all these other young men. How different was that in communicating with them and did you have to like team up with them and work in any way? Did you have positive experiences that you remember fondly or were there some negative experience that you kind of had to overcome and, you know, put that behind you and just keep moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was positive. like I said, two older brothers. So the guys at the academy also became older brothers to me in a way, right? And so it wasn't really until I stepped into corporate America that I ever really had someone tell me I couldn't do something because of my gender.
Huh.
So even, which I think is interesting in hindsight, right? Because being in that male dominated environment, you would think that I would have been excluded or picked upon or like any of those discriminatory things, but I really didn't feel that in my college career. I think the only thing, like in hindsight, that I really think about was it's not really even discriminatory, but where it was made noticeable that I was a female and the rest were men, was we had an ocean survival class that we had to do in the pool, and scuba diving. We had to get those certifications as part of our degree, and so I was the only girl in my class. And girls naturally have extra flotation because we naturally have more fat on our body in certain places, and so my instructor who had been special forces, he came out and he instructed everybody on how we were going to use our masks and all the things. And he's like, and you, and he points right at me. He's like, I got extra gear for you. And we got all in the pool and he literally hooked a weight belt to me and I just dropped to the bottom of the pool. So like that was embarrassing because I was singled out, but for like an occupational reason, I would never have been able to do the same, bottom of the pool, clearing your mask, dive stuff if I didn't have that weight belt on. So he needed to do it, but really that was the only thing where I really felt conscious that I was different and that I had limitations or like something needed to be different because of my gender in my education. So, and I think it really did prepare me for the work world in a male dominated field.
That's awesome. So how did networking factor into your career success, especially since you did have some kind of preparation with, being in a male dominated area. And then obviously, as we know, the energy industry has been male dominated for most of it. Most of the time we've been in it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, networking is literally what I do every single day as a salesperson, right? It's a huge part of my job. And I think it's one of my superpowers in a way. We stereotypically, as women, I think, are people connectors. And I think I would identify as that as well. Like, I think about who should meet someone else, who should I introduce to someone else, because it's about like connecting people to level everyone up. So if I know you're struggling with something or you need information on something and I have a person in my network that I know could help you out with that, then I'm happy to make those introductions because I know like it's good business karma because it may not cause a sale. Like we may not get a purchase order because of this connection. Like it's not about that. It's about being kind of a Rolodex and a resource for other people. Because when they call and they know that you can connect someone in the industry, then they'll call you again when they are ready to place a purchase order, or, it'll naturally lead to those business things. So, I mean, I'm super active on LinkedIn. I network all the time internally to my company as well as externally. The WEN organization has been really good for my network. You know, not only just as a member, but taking on leadership positions within WEN, both at the chapter level and now at the global level, just really expands my horizons of the number of people that I know in the number of different parts of our industry. And I think WEN specifically really is a superpower for me to network with women, right? And I feel like there is a barrier that's instantly broken down when you're talking to another woman in the energy industry. And so I feel more comfortable reaching out to other women if I don't know them, like if I'm not even connected with them on LinkedIn or something, but somebody said, "Hey, why don't you call that person?" It feels like less of a barrier to me to reach out to a woman. And so I think through that female network that I've gained over the last 25 years in this industry, I have some really great connections in, I would say, every corner of the industry, both locally, nationally, and globally. So, yeah, I think networking is huge. You have to do it.
I agree. Has being a woman impacted your career in any way? It does sound like the networking part and being part of like the Women's Energy Network has been helpful. Is there anything else being a woman has impacted in your career?
Yeah, I mean, in the last 25 years, I've navigated a bunch of things as we all do going through our careers and our growth cycles. I'm a mom, so having being in a male-dominated field, my youngest is 22. My oldest is almost 24. So 24 years ago, as a pretty new employee in the industry, I was having babies, and so that I think is a completely different vibe than maybe some of the guys who are dads as well, especially 25 years ago. Um, at the time, my husband wasn't, he didn't even get paternity leave. Now we have at our company, at least, and I believe most companies have paternity leave of some type and have acknowledged the fact that guys need to bond with their children as well and help their significant other out. And that just was not part of the conversation 25 years ago. Even maternity leave was not part of the conversation. I mean, it was, but it was like 6 weeks. Um, and you're barely, I mean, you just had a major, basically surgery, right? And now you have a little human you have to take care of who's also using resources from your body. Like, to get back to work in 6 weeks is a pretty tall ask. And to think you're not going to be distracted by it in some way, right? Even the simple things like breastfeeding, right? The resources were not there. We had to use bathrooms that didn't have plugs or, those types of things. So things have come a long way, I would say, in the field of parenthood in general for the guys as well. And I'm not sure those advancements would have been made if women weren't in the industry and in the workforce to force better for their families and the guys by extension, right? To help their children and the child rearing. So I would say, like, in that early part of my phase, absolutely, I felt an impact because I was a young mother and just navigating all the things, right? Daycare and medical, leave and all of those things. Similarly, as the kids were growing up, when they were sick, right? I mean, who's going home? It kind of all falls on the mom. And I would say even today, now that they're college kids and 20 some odd years later, it's still kind of assumed that, like, my daughter was having surgery last week and I took off to do that, but it was just kind of assumed that I would be the one to do that. And so, yeah, I think that when we really look at it, there are, especially if you're a woman who is planning to have a family, there are just some barriers that guys haven't had along the way. But it has gotten better and there are a lot more resources for both moms and dads. But I think that is one of the biggest places that, in my career where being a woman has impacted just because of the practical navigations of that life change of bringing little humans into the world.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that definitely sounds like that can make things a bit more difficult too, juggling all the kids and the sickness, the surgeries, and still being, as successful and putting your best effort forward. I am glad too to see that we are, there seems to be a bit more grace and empathy and, with most companies now about, that life happens too and that, we have to be able to like, still be able to take those times to do those things and that, it actually helps us even, want to be with that company even longer when they're more accepting of those factors. So,
Yeah,
do
agreed.
you what habits do you have or techniques do you use to de-stress, especially with
That's
all
a
the things that
really,
you just talked about?
yeah, that's a really great question. And it's something I've been working really hard on this year is to really say yes to myself. I've spent 25 years saying yes to other people. And now that we have an empty nest and I'm in a different phase of life, then I can really you know, look inward and think about, like, what do I need and what do I need for my own, like, stress management? What are the hobbies I want to do now that I have a little bit of time back to myself? So I've been really working on this. So I found journaling in the morning. Like, I get up, I try to be up 2 hours before I need to do anything in the morning. And I really just, I call it easing into my day, which my husband kind of makes fun of me for, but I just, because he's a get up and go and, he's up at 5 and like at his desk by 5:15 and he's like, go, go, go. But I'm like, okay, I want to ease into my day. I wake up, I lay in bed, I snuggle my dogs, I just like have relaxing time. I get my coffee. I journal in the morning. I have a Remarkable. So my date planner's now on my Remarkable. And so I look at my day, like, okay, what's coming at me today? What do I want to accomplish? Um, I had a mentor who told me she makes a list of 3 things she's going to do every day, and she doesn't do anything that's not on her list. And I thought that was like so crazy because I was like, who are you that you think there's only 3 things you have to do? Like, because life happens, people dump stuff on your plate. Like, I've got a to-do list
Absolutely.
of 300,000 things, and by noon, it's 400,000 things because people have dumped it on me. But I really tried to take that in and like think about the spirit of that and be like, okay, I need to focus. What are the 3 to 5? I give myself 5. 3 to 5 things that I will go to bed tonight feeling like I have accomplished something and something meaningful and made today, done something better today that made tomorrow easier, right? Easier or better. And so I do that. And throughout the day, when I get distracted on the 400 million thousand things that need to be done, I come back to that list and really just have a grounded to-do list of, okay, let me get back on track. What have I not accomplished on my very short list of things? Um, so I try to do that in the morning. Yoga and meditation, I try to do as much as I can, even when I'm traveling. Sometimes it's hard for me to get to sleep and my brain's going a million miles a minute. And so I do sleep meditations. So I really love that. Um, and then I've set myself a goal to read because I haven't read for pleasure since like high school. And so I don't even know what I like to read anymore. And so this year I gave myself a goal of 1 book per month. Sometimes they're audiobooks because I travel a lot, drive a lot, and that also is helpful because I can kind of I try not to be on any devices, even hands-free, like work meetings and stuff while driving. So what am I going to do when I'm driving 5 hours to somewhere, right? So audiobooks have become a good outlet and kind of a secret place where I can be by myself in the car listening to whatever. And I've really been dabbling on like, okay, what is the genre I like? And so it's really been a nice exploration of my own self as well and like get back to myself. And then I love to crochet as well. So it's something that my grandmother taught me. And I always think of her whenever I'm doing it. And it's a very meditative thing. And I love like the mandala patterns. And so mandalas in themselves are a pretty meditative thing. So I do that whenever I have a spare minute. So those are some of the things. But I think that it's super important that we explore whatever it is for your own de-stressing mechanisms because I've seen people have some real issues with burnout and have significant and scary health issues. And I know that stress causes cancer and heart disease and like all the things. There's a lot of research. And so, as busy as we are doing all the things for everybody else and putting pressure on ourselves to, climb the ladder and do all that, we need to take care of our mental and our physical health as well and keep our stress levels down. So, something I've been working on, and I think everybody should be working on it as well.
I completely agree. And I'm a huge book lover. So if you need any suggestions, I gotcha. All like I'm really
Excellent.
into a few genres too. So I'd love to,
Excellent.
give you some suggestions of books I've read. I'm also big on coffee and contemplation in the mornings. Like it's kind of
I love
the
that
saying
phrase,
from
coffee and
Stranger
contemplation.
Things. But yeah, I always like, give me coffee and contemplation. I need it right now. I can't start yet. It's a lot of,
Maybe I'll start
oftentimes
using
I tell my
coffee and
husband that.
contemplation instead of easing into my day. That's what
Yes.
I'm going to do.
Yes. And crocheting, that is also something on my list to do. So I may reach out to you about that because it's something I have a puppy, but once he stops, being a puppy, that's something I want to get into. Um,
Perfect.
so what is one action people can take today to improve their career, be better at work-life balance, be more effective leader? I feel like you just gave a little bit, but anything else you'd like to add to that?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a lot about the stress right now. And I think after COVID we got stuck into overwork situation. I think we were all bored during COVID and stuck inside. And so work became, we let work creep into a lot of our realms that it didn't creep into before because most of the rest of the world was shut down. We couldn't go out to a concert or go out to a whatever,
Yeah.
And so we let work creep into those spaces. And I think we need to take those spaces back.
Yeah.
And I think we need to hold space for each other to take those spaces back, right? So, um, yeah, managing your own stress, managing the boundaries of where work is allowed to creep into, and then making sure other people's boundaries are respected as well. If you know a coworker is out on vacation, don't call them or text them, like figure out how to contact somebody else or same thing if you are a manager of people, to make sure you know what their calendar is. And I put it on my Outlook that so and so is out of the office. I also put people's birthdays on my calendar so that as much as I'm like leaving them alone, I also am proactively like saying happy, good news stuff as well. So I think paying attention, especially if you're a people leader, then you need to be paying attention and making sure that they have that time for rest and relaxation. I think we as folks in the US, we just overwork in general, but there's so many things we can do to help each other out, right? And if I'm working on the weekend, I have it so my email doesn't send until Monday morning at like 9 a.m. And then of course a whole slew of emails go out. But that's to me better than people getting a Saturday night at 9 p.m. email from me and feeling like they have to respond. And I
Yeah.
know some people put at the bottom, like, just because you got this off work hours, it matches my schedule, it may not match yours, whatever that little saying is, like, that's fine, but that only goes so far, right?
Yeah.
And so I personally prefer the way I do it, that I don't want to set up that culture of overwork. Um, and so I don't want my own when and where I need to work impact people, even if it's like subconsciously when they see it. You know what I mean? So I
Yeah.
make sure they don't get sent until Monday morning. So little things like that to really have some balance. Recently, we also, as a company, have went to a new policy where you need to have two different cell phones. Like you can't do your personal stuff on your work cell phone, which I think is great because if anything legal happens, that all goes into discovery and you don't need your, personal emails or bank accounts or any of that in a discovery on a corporate something. And so for me, after 20 years of having a cell phone, this is the first time I've had a personal versus work cell phone. And it's only been like a month, but I will say that that has made a huge difference because I can literally leave my work cell phone on my desk and go out to dinner. Sometimes I forward my calls just in case, but at least I'm not like looking on my Outlook and see or my Teams chats and stuff from work. And so that has been really helpful as well. So yeah, I think there's a lot of things we can do to put up those guardrails about work-life balance, but we also have to help each other maintain those boundaries.
Exactly. I completely agree with you. I probably this past year was when I first started using the do not disturb on my phone.
Mhm.
And it's made a probably more my last job. It made a big difference than now because it's a little less like chaotic, but I mean, it was noticeable to me. And it is one of those things that I think sometimes when you start out, you think you have to just be in manic panic mode and like, you overdo and then the longer you've been in it you're just like wait a minute, what am I doing? What is the result here? Is this really effective? And it's definitely something I am also working on, so I completely agree with you on that. um is there anything else you want to add, or I think we're about.
No, I thank you so much for doing
Well,
this with
thank
me,
you.
and hopefully it was helpful. I had fun getting to know each other a little bit better.
Yeah, I loved it. And I don't know if we're supposed to add this, so if it gets edited, I do know that at the end of this year is when the discount for the WEN conference ends. So just as a
Right.
reminder, if this does go out before then for the conference in 2026, you can get a discounted rate to attend. I know I'll be there. Do you plan on going, Lynette?
Absolutely. I feel like I was one of the first registrants. So yeah, and I've gone to the last three conferences, I believe. So I'm a huge supporter of the conference. So
Me
yes,
too.
get the early bird. I'm also a huge like coupon user. So get the early bird
Yes.
for sure.
Yes.